Hey, good morning. It's morning time. Yeah, good morning. I am headed to an All About Lavender class at a local nursery. So I thought I'd just bring you guys along. It was free. I found it on Eventbrite. That has been one of the things since I moved to North Carolina. And meeting people, because I know nobody, has been Eventbrite and Meetup. So that's a suggestion to anyone who moves somewhere and knows nobody. There's always things to do. So I've joined Eventbrite and Meetup, and I look for just different things that interest me. So today is All About Lavender at Pike's Nursery. So it's about 30 minutes away. There's one in Charlotte, but there's also one in, I think it's Huntersville. I think that's the one I'm going to, because Huntersville is closer to me than Charlotte. Because if I don't have to drive 45 minutes to Charlotte, that'd be great. But yeah, I'm loving it. So we're gonna see. I'm gonna take you guys with me and see what we learn. And I forgot my notebook, so I'm gonna have to use my notes on my phone. I can't believe I forgot my notebook. Maybe they'll have handouts. I don't know, but let's go.
I hear people either have great luck with it or they have bad luck with it. I am underwater, so it tends to like me because it really does not like to have wet feet, does not like to be in water. They need full sun, and they don't really need a whole lot of fertilizer. So to me, this is a great plant because it's very low maintenance for me. And it's a great pollinator. The bees love it. You can use it for, herbal needs, dried flowers, anything like that. So it's really a great plant for kind of covering all bases. Here, like English, Spanish, I get that a lot of, if we have them in stock. Really, sometimes it'll say very clear on the tag, Spanish lavender. Other times you're gonna have to look and find the scientific name, which is why those are handy to look at. All of them have kind of different looks if you're doing it for different needs. So English lavender, personally I like English lavender. I think it does really well in this environment. I like the flowers a little bit better than the Spanish. The Spanish tend to have more of like the, almost like a pom-pom. They're a little thicker to me. I think that they're still really lovely and they do a good job. I just tend to like kind of more of the wildflower free-form kind of stalks on them. You have like a hybrid. The hybrids are, designed and grown to be a little bit more disease resistant, which is nice. Lavender tends to not really deal with too many diseases or attracting too many pests, which is great. And they're good for the drying flowers. And then you have the Spanish. Spanish is kind of good all around. They tend to be a little bit more compact, a little bit more bushy. So you can kind of see the difference between something like this and something like this. Totally depends on the look that you're going for. The problem I see most with lavender is it's either not getting enough sun or it's getting too much water. Those are the things that I'm going to run into. Hi, how are you? All the time. This is what happens when it gets sometimes too much water. It starts to kind of almost rot. It might look like it's dry, but if you kind of squeeze the stems, it's mushy. Like they're starting to rot out. You'll see like kind of gaps in the middle of your lavender. You really don't want that, especially if you're watering lavender, whether it's in the pot or in the ground. You never want to put your nozzle right in the middle of the crown of the plant. The crown of the plant is where you don't want to have water just sitting there. So if you've ever grown butterfly bush, I love butterfly bush. They're very similar. but they are prone to rot. So I usually tell people if you plant it high in the ground, so like half an inch to an inch kind of above, and it looks kind of weird, it looks like you didn't plant it all the way in. That way the water, when it rains heavy like we have been, drains away from the crown. So if you want to do the same with lavender, when it's in the ground, it's a really good method just to prevent water from seeping into that main crown. If the crown rots, the plant dies. That's just a one-shot death sentence. Same with wet feet. If you have it in a pot that doesn't have drainage, and I'll go over some different pots. Root rot, it's very hard to come back from root rot. It's a variegated one. This is the only variegated lavender I have. It's really cute. I don't have it long enough in store for me to ever see it bloom because people always buy it. So, but I don't.
What's variegated mean?
Variegated has the two different colors.
Gotcha.
So it has the margin of that kind of cream color, which is really nice that you get. There's also lavender that goes white to more of a dark purple to your typical lavender color. So again, you can kind of, you know, figure out this is a little bit more of your lavender. This right here has more of your dark stem on it, and I believe I might have pulled a white one. Okay, maybe I did not pull a white one. Well, there's a white one out there that you can have a white flower. Do I have any questions kind of on what I just touched base? Yeah, so here's a good example. You can see that there's like roots popping out of the bottom. I hear a lot like, oh, you know, lavender, rosemary is very similar also. They really don't like their feet messed with. So if it's a really root-bound plant, which most of these are going to be, you really don't want to mess them up, tease the roots, you don't want to cut them. It creates a lot of trauma, a lot of shock for the plant. It's honestly better if you just kind of wiggle it out, plop it in, leave it alone. So I'll go over pots, and then I'll kind of go into the planting if you're doing it outside. It kind of depends on how you are as a person. If you tend to overwater, or maybe you're worried that, you know, we have a lot of rain, it's not drying out as much, I fully just say get terracotta. It wicks away water very quickly, it's very porous, it brings in oxygen to the roots. It's very hard to overwater something in terracotta. Believe me, I have tried. It's hard. It dries out very quickly, it's very nice. It also kind of fits in the theme, kind of Tuscan, Mediterranean with the lavender. This looks very nice. You can also do something that is glazed. These are more of our big ceramic ones outside, but they do have a hole at the bottom. I don't care if you get our pots here from Lowe's or Home Depot, from TJ Maxx, it has to have a hole at the bottom, especially for lavender. There are some times where I'm like, if it's a really cute pot, doesn't have a hole, some plants are fine with it. These will die very, very quickly if they do not have drainage at the bottom. That water needs to go somewhere. It cannot be sitting at the bottom. Even if you put rocks on the bottom, charcoal, bark, whatnot, it's just not going to be a good time for that. You'll notice it'll go downhill very, very quickly. With the pots, you can use fertilizer. Since you are kind of watering a pot all the time, all that nutrients is going to slowly start to drain out. Like I said in the beginning, these don't love a whole lot of fertilizer, so Osmocote is a slow release. It goes up to 5 months, 4 or 5 months, very hands off. You can just kind of mix it in with your soil beforehand, leave it alone, and it's usually good for, I usually just do it once in the spring and then I'm done. Or you can do root zone. Root zone is a great one. We do recommend it for here since we have a lot of clay, and on top of the clay we have a lot of rocks. So this is a great one. You just put it in the pot before it goes in. It helps with root development. If you're planting these in the ground, I strongly recommend using this. You can skip out on this if you want to, just because, you know, when you're doing it out in your landscape, there's natural nutrients that are always going to be kind of regulating itself. This, though, is a good before planting it. Usually I kind of mix it in, so once I kind of dig a hole that is usually twice as big as whatever nursery pot that I'm using, whatever I dig up, 50% of that I mix with a planting mix. So it's not all planting mix, it's not all clay. I will throw a handful of this and I kind of mix it around in the bottom just to kind of, you know, evenly disperse it. If you don't want to, you can just kind of do a handful, leave it alone, and pop it in. Like I said, I would make the holes for lavender as big as you possibly can. That way you can really kind of amend that soil that you have in there to make sure that it is well draining in there. I tell people I don't put rocks at the bottom of pretty much anything, unless you maybe have kids and it's a house plant and you don't want them to like pull it down. Sometimes rocks can kind of just mess with the roots once they hit that bottom part. So instead of, you know, digging a hole, I know it's really hard to dig in our clay. If it's only a little bit bigger than this, that's fine. Take a shovel and really kind of make holes around the bowl that you just made with your clay. That way at least there's crevices where the roots can go.
Is lavender the butterflies?
Yes. Yes, they love those. Usually I see bees and butterflies. I don't see a whole lot of hummingbirds, hummingbird moths, but they're a great pollinator to have. All of them pretty much are great for drying. You can just do it like the very hands-off way where you just, if all of these were bloomed, you can just kind of do the ponytail trick and you just whack it. You can selectively kind of prune it if you want to, like this right here. You can see that there are some spent blooms. I can go in and individually, you know, cut them off if I want to. If not, I can just leave them there. It's not going to affect the plant. It's not something that you need to deadhead in order for it to kind of rebloom. If it's an eyesore and you're out there in your garden, feel free to just kind of take them off. Out of all their herbs, they don't like a whole lot of water. Most herbs like to stay hydrated. So if you mix it in a container, sometimes it can be a little tricky if it's getting too much water. If you
same with rosemary too.
Sometimes
They're kind of similar.
Rosemary's a little bit more forgiving.
Okay.
I would say if it does get a lot more water, it might just look kind of sad and ticked off for a couple days, but it kind of rebounds quicker.
Okay.
When you see lavender go downhill, it's quick, and it's usually because of that too much water. If you are mixing lavender with any herb, sage is a good one. Sage tends to not love a whole lot of water either, and it does stay a little bit more compact. That would be a good option, you know, if you want to. I do still have some curry plants out there. Curry, it's not the spice curry, but it smells very similar to it. It's in the Helichrysum family. It's very similar to lavender. It looks almost the same as lavender. So if you wanted to mix those two, you can mix those two. It's fair game. You know, you can dry them, make bundles, give them away as presents. I've seen people make them into candles, pressed flowers, everything like that. People sometimes do what they do with eucalyptus. They'll take a bunch of it, dry it, hang it over their shower head, and that creates a really good steam shower, so that's fun to do. One of the other things that I will talk about is pruning. So this, also like rosemary, gets very woody. It can get a very woody base to it. Another kind of disclaimer, depending on who you talk to, depending on the type of lavender, they kind of have a shelf life. I would say on average, every 3 to 4 years, you might kind of notice that your lavender might need either a rejuvenation prune and you kind of cross your fingers that it flushes back, or it might need to be replaced if you don't kind of stay on top of pruning. They can get woody to the point where they're almost like this. And when you cut it, I would say if you cut anything that's thicker than your fingers, you can risk it shocking the plant and it not coming back. There are some things where, you know, I have a rosemary that's in a huge pot that's literally this big around. I just let it do its thing and it's fine. I got it for like $5, so I was like, if it dies, it dies. I'm surprised it stayed with me this long. But especially if you're using it in your landscape, if you do like a hedge of lavender, I think it's beautiful. There's different ways to prune it. You can go in after it's done doing its big main bloom, so late summer, kind of early fall, and you can kind of shear it back almost 30 to 40%. I wouldn't push it past 50 or more, just because usually in general you don't want to prune 20% of the plant. It can do a little bit too much shock to it, but that way it promotes it from kind of keeping it, you know, young, pliable, new growth on it. If you notice anything, like for this one, and I can pass this around, you can see that there's some kind of brown, there's some issues. If you wanted to go in, clip all of that out. Lavender likes a lot of good airflow, which again is maybe why I kind of lean more towards this over Spanish, because Spanish is a little bit more bushy and dense. Doesn't create problems, it's just, again, I'm very hands-off, so if it's starting to have a problem and I don't catch it in time, I'm kind of like, okay, it's going in the dumpster. This kind of buys me time because there's a lot of airflow through it. It's not going to have a lot of issues like it could possibly get powdery mildew. Powdery mildew is when there's not enough airflow, there's water kind of sitting on the leaves. Maybe it's in an area of your yard that doesn't get a lot of wind. I wouldn't put them too close to roses depending on which roses you have. Some can get very big. I love roses, but they are maintenance personally. And one of the biggest things that we tell people if you have roses, there is a systemic that we tell people it's a great systemic for roses. But if you use that and these are very close to that area, I wouldn't feel comfortable with people then ingesting this. Just because that systemic does do disease, pests, fungal issues, kind of covers everything. I wouldn't want that close to edibles.
So I had a really great time at the class today. Learned a lot about lavender. I also learned that my rosemary has similar tendencies, which is probably why I've killed 5 of them. The one I have right now is living surely on its own will. Surely. It has nothing to do with me. I learned that they don't like wet feet, and apparently I was overwatering and I didn't have correct drainage, and so all those things cause problems. So I did learn that, but that was a really great class. I didn't win the prize. They had a prize giveaway that you would get a lavender plant, but I didn't get one. So yeah. But if you're watching this far, I did go live. I maybe went live for maybe 5-6 minutes while I was in the nursery. So you can check my live to kind of see like inside the nursery when I was walking around. But I had a great time, learned a lot. So anytime I get any classes like that for free, it's great information.